Good morning, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Rowley with our Bible class today, and I'm going to read Best of All by Max Lucado, and today is Friday, June 5th. So, enjoy. Illustrations are by Sergio Martinez. They're hanging a banner. Higher on the right. Higher on the right, demanded the mayor. There was no patience in his voice. Chip the Weemick, lifting the banner, stretched as high as he could and pounded the nail into the pole. Better. He'd barely asked the question when his ladder began to sway, first to one side, then to the other, and then crash. Chip grabbed the nail he'd just hammered and held on tight. Perfect, just perfect, declared the mayor. As Weemix ran to the rescue of the dangling worker, the mayor's wife read aloud the words stretched over the street. Weemixville welcomes Miss Bess Toval. Oh, she clapped her hands as she spoke. What a wonderful day. Whoever would have thought that such a famous person would come to our village? You know what they say, don't you? Everyone leaned forward. When it comes to Weemix, she's the best of all. Punicello and Lucia, near enough to overhear the words, like the rest of the townspeople that were wooden Weemics, made by Eli the Weemic maker. Unlike the rest of the people, they were puzzled. Tell me again, Punicello asked the mayor's wife. Why is she so famous? Because everyone knows her. But why does everyone know her? Because she's so famous. That doesn't make any sense. But why is she coming to Weemixville? Punicello asked. The mayor rolled her eyes in disgust. Haven't you heard? She's here to choose members for the wonderful Weemix Club. Punicello nodded like he understood, but he really didn't. He looked at Lucia, who looked at him, and they both shrugged their shoulders. He was just about to ask another question when the watch Weemic on top of the hill shouted, She's here! She's here! Doors flew open. Stores emptied. Villagers rushed from all directions to the end of Main Street. Fathers lifted children to their shoulders. Short Weemics elbowed their way to the front of the crowd. There was much shouting and pointing and tiptoe standing until a uniformed wooden soldier, looking very official and formal, appeared at the turn in the road. With scroll in hand and bugle hanging from his neck, he marched over to the Weemic River Bridge and stopped in front of the crowd, staring straight ahead at no one in particular. He stood stiffly until all had hushed. Opening the scroll, he read in a loud voice, Cut from the grandest trees, carved from the grandest forest, carved from the strongest trees, full of sap, only the purest. She's the highest pedigree. So welcome ye Weemics to your village so small, the noblest grain from the finest lumber. She is best of all. With snappy movements, he tucked the scroll under his arm and pulled the bugle to his lips. Da-da-da! Da-da-da! When the Weemics saw next, caused a village-wide gasp. A squad of soldiers marched around the corner, shouldering a tall box with curtains. From behind him, Punicello heard the crowd whisper, It's her! The box still on two poles, and the poles resting on the shoulders of four soldiers. Two guards walked in front, two walked in back. Boots on the wooden bridge made the only sound. Click, click, click. They kept in perfect step until one of the soldiers stumbled just slightly. The box leaned over the water. The villagers gasped a second time. Let the box lean much farther, and the guests of honor would fall into the fast-flowing river. But the soldiers straightened themselves, crossed the bridge, and came to a stop in front of the mayor and his wife. They lowered the box. The trumpet-toting, scroll-reading servant stepped forward and, after a long pause, pulled back the curtains. As Bess stepped out, the villagers stepped back. They'd never seen a wooden person quite like Miss Bess Stovall. Feathers flumed out of her hat, earrings dangling to her shoulders. Both her lips were dressed with bright red lipstick. Her shoes were tall, her nails were long. Most noticeably, a large golden letter M hung around her neck. Do you think she's pretty? When she snapped her fingers, a sentry handed her a white cloth. With it, she carefully wiped the M and held it like a mirror for her face. Seeing her reflection, she adjusted her hair and she smiled. Best of all, was pleased with herself. With eyes peering down her high nose, she held out her hand, allowing it to fall forward at the wrist. Ahem. The mayor's wife understood the gesture. She elbowed her husband. Kiss it. And he did. And when he did, the visitor spoke. What good fortune is yours that I have come your way? She marked, high-headed, hand still extended. The mayor's wife curtsied and motioned for the other Weemics to do the same. They did, even the men. Shall we get on with this meeting? Bess asked. Of course, answered the mayor. Everyone in line. One by one, the citizens of Weemicsville passed before their guest. Yes, yes, she would reply to whatever was said to her. Welcome to our village. Yes, yes, we're glad you're here. Yes, yes, we are honored. Yes, yes, she would say. She was less concerned about what they said than what she saw. Occasionally she would pause and stare deeply at a Weemic. She'd examine the nose of the store owner and the ear of his son. She ran a gloved thumb across the hand of the house builder and took a long look at the forehead of the painter. No one knew what she was looking for, and no one asked, although the wife of the mayor acted as if she knew, nodding with a famous guest nod and sighing when she sighed. The shortest and longest looks were given to Punicello and Lucia. Upon seeing Punicello, Bess suddenly stepped back before she could touch his hand. Lifting her nose and waving, she instructed, Go on, go on. Stunned, Punicello didn't move. He just stood there. Move on, her servant repeated with a firm voice. Punicello did. Lucia started to move, to follow him, not wanting the same treatment. Suddenly, the grand visitor stopped Lucia. My, what have we here? Her eyes widened, and for the very first time since she began greeting Weemics, a soft smile narrowed her face. Such fine grain, such a nice shade. Are you maple? She didn't understand. Excuse me? Are you made of maple? She had to think before answering. Yes. Which forest? She asked. Lucia paused and thought. It took some time to remember. Majestic, she finally answered. Bess placed her hand over her mouth in surprise. Then you and I are of the same family. We are? Best of all laughed. Of course. She then leaned forward and whispered, How nice to find someone of my roots. Stay around and we shall talk. Lucia did. Between greetings, Best of all would make remarks to Lucia beneath her breath, such as, Ugly, what naughty timber, such an inferior grove, or definitely from the wrong side of the mountain. Lucia understood none of the comments, but she didn't say so. After all the greetings, Bess signaled for Lucia to step near. Tomorrow we must chat. I have something for you. And she fingered her M necklace. With that, she turned and left, escorted by the soldiers, followed by the mayor and his wife. Punicello asked Lucia, Did I do something wrong? I don't know, said Lucia. Did you do something right? I don't know, said Lucia. Why is she kind to some Weemics and rude to others? Excuse me. I think it has something to do with your ancestry. My what? The forest that you came from. Why does that matter? I don't know. They turned and left the village. Neither one spoke. They hadn't known They were different, and now they did, and they didn't know how to feel. I'll see you tomorrow, Punicello finally said. Yeah, sure, Lucia replied. Neither felt happy. As the days passed, they saw each other less and less. It took Best of All only a short time to select her favorite wee mix from the wonderful wee mix club Lucia was among. So were the store owner and Mr. and Mrs. Mayer. Bess gave each an M to wear around their neck. The M is for maple. You are maples, she explained as she showed them how to polish the medallion. Not all wee mix are equal. Some are common, some are pine or elm. A few are quality, cut from maple like you. Fewer still of us are made from a fine family tree. And she glanced at Lucia, and Lucia blushed. The other wee mix politely applauded. So they're saying some people are better than other people. And then, best of all, curled her lips as if she just tasted something sour. Some wee mix are willows. Willows? He asked. Willow is weak wood. The maple wee mix explained. It bends. It bruises. It has shallow roots. No one wants to be a willow. Do you know any? The mayor's wife asked. Actually, there's one in your village. They all leaned forward curious. Bess looked at Lucia. Your friend. Punicello? Lucia asked. Everyone gasped. I always knew he was weaker, someone said. Been suspecting a bad family for years, another agreed. Such a sapling, added a third. The rest nodded. Lucia nodded and then with them. From that day forward, wee Mixville began to change. Townspeople took notice of each other's tree type. The walnuts looked down on the pines. The pines looked down on the elms. The maples looked down on everyone. And everyone looked down on Punicello. Poor Punicello. Walnuts formed a club and opened several branches. Elms cut a path and named it Elm Street. Maples built a treehouse and hosted M polishing parties. Everyone had a group. Everyone, that is, except Punicello. Even Lucia ignored her friend. Hi, Lucia, he would say to her. Yes, yes, she would reply, not stopping. She was, after all, cut from the finest tree. And Punicello was just a willow, weemic, soft and easily bent. One day, Punicello felt especially alone. He went to the pine picnic, but no one would sit with him. The walnuts were playing games, but no one threw him the ball. He even tried to go to the maple party, but the sign on the door said, Royal, tree only. Punicello was very sad, and he went for a walk, and he sat by the river, where the willow trees grew. Why did I have to be a willow? He asked out loud to no one. What would you rather have been? The sound of the voice startled Punicello. He turned, and he saw Eli, his maker. Maple, Eli responded. Eli asked, would you rather be a maple? Punicello didn't answer, both sad and embarrassed. He lowered his head. Eli walked over and lifted Punicello's chin with his finger. Other weemics are better, Punicello told him. Who said? Asked Eli. Everyone. Eli sighed and he shook his head. Come on. The two walked over to a willow tree and stopped. Punicello, who do you think knows more, the weemix or the weemix maker? Ooh, Punicello smiled softly. The maker. Of course I do. Do you think I knew what I was doing when I made you? The look in Eli's eye concerned Punicello, and he was about to hear something important. You are special, my child. You are the way you are because I made you that way. You chose my forest? Yes. You chose my wood? Yes, said Eli. Willow is just as special as Maple. Just as special? Then why do the others treat me like I am not? Here is someone you can ask. Hi, Punicello. This time the voice was Lucia's. I'm sorry, she said. I've been listening too much to them and not enough to Eli. Punicello shrugged. He noticed she wasn't wearing her M necklace anymore. That's okay, he responded. Both smiled. Want to go back to the village? Today is the big send-off for best of all. Yeah, I'd like that. The two said goodbye to Eli and they walked towards Weemicksville. Many Weemicks turned when they entered the village. More than one whispered and pointed at the Maple Weemick and the Willow Weemick walking side by side. But Punicello and Lucia didn't care. They were glad to be friends again. All of the Weemicksville turned out to say goodbye to Miss Best of All. She stepped into her box and signaled she was ready to go. Her soldier escorts marched proudly before her. Her bugler sounded the farewell, and the Weemicks lined up the side of the streets to watch. New members of the Weemics Wonderful Club wore their club t-shirts with pride. Crossing the bridge, the honored guest waved her gold medallion at the crowd. Farewell, lovely Weemics. Perhaps someday we'll meet again. Bess leaned out the window of her special box so everyone could see her. As she did, she leaned a bit too far and she began falling. Her tumble stopped when her medallion chain caught on the bridge rail. When it snapped in half, she grabbed one end and held on, the river roaring behind her. Weemics cried with alarm. Help her! Help her! The mayor's wife shouted. Save her! Yelled another. But no one could reach her, said an onlooker. I can't hold on much longer, Bess shrieked. Soldiers turned. Weemics tried. No success. They were too stiff to bend underneath the bridge. Let me try, shouted Punicello. I'm made of lumber. Not waiting for an answer, he ran to the edge of the bridge and sat with his back to the river. Grab my legs. When the soldiers did, he leaned back and he bent over to the river. Grab my legs. When the soldiers did, he leaned back, bent over double, twisted around until he was hanging upside down. Instantly, he could see the wide-eyed Weemick. She was clinging to the chain, and her feet were pulling by the river. I'm coming, he shouted. Then, to the amazement of everyone, he bent over backwards, back, until he was under the bridge, reaching for the desperate Bess. Take my hand, he offered. This time, she didn't care what kind of wood he was made of. She grabbed his hand and held on. You must let go of the chain, Punicello instructed. She obeyed the little Weemick, letting go of her precious medallion and watched it fall into the river below. Punicello swung forward, pulling Bess high enough to be grabbed by the soldiers. Within moments, Punicello and Bess were safe on the bridge and surrounded by the Weemicks. How'd you do that? Everyone asked. It's easy when you're made of the right wood, he replied. For several moments no one spoke. Then from back, one of the Maple Weemicks walked up to Punicello. He removed his M from his chain and he turned it upside down, making a W. Enough of all this talk about maples. We're just Weemicks. Hanging the W around Punicello's neck, he added, Punicello, you are the Weemick of the day. One by one, the Maple Weemicks removed their chains, placing them on the ground near Punicello. Soon there was a small pile of medallions. Even the mayor and his wife removed theirs, though she took one last look at herself in the M before she set it down. And isn't an M the same as a W upside down? The Weemicks started back towards town. The last thing everyone could remember about Miss Best of All was seeing the majestic Maple down by the street, marching all alone, looking for her precious medallion. As for the villagers, they quit talking about ancestries and decided to just be Wemix again. And Punicello, he had a new job in town. Say, Punch, a new Wemix friend added on his way to the village, there's a ball stuck up on my chimney. Any chance you can reach it? And when Punch did, he looked up the hill. Eli was watching from the porch of his house. Eli waved, and his maker smiled. So God made us the way he made us. That's what he wanted. Lord Jesus, I pray your blessing on each and every one of my boys and girls. They're each special in their own way. Pray that you bless them today and every day. Pray that you would bless their moms and their dads and their brothers and their sisters and their grandmas and their grandpas and their dogs and their cats and their pets. And give them a super awesome, great day. It's going to be another beautiful day. And we thank you for this nice, warm weather. We love it. In Jesus' name, amen.